Artistic Gamer 7, and welcome back to another speed build here on the channel. This is obviously part 2 of the not little, but the fantasy build I was sort of doing, which as a recap, I am building this for a future Create a Sim series that is going to be coming up after the Pokemon 2 Cast Series 2 ends, which is, depending on when I post this, as of making this, I don't think the Pokemon Series 2 is actually going to end, like, very soon after I make this. By the time I post this, depending on how many builds I have to show, if I don't have many builds lined up, I will go ahead and post this one sooner, but otherwise I'll put other builds before this one But yeah, so in the near future, there is going to be a new series that is going to be replacing the Pokemon to Cast Series 2. There will be a Pokemon to Cast Series 3. If you like the Pokemon series, which I enjoy the Pokemon series a lot, it's not going away completely, but it will, just taking a break from it, and a new series will be taking its place for a bit. But yeah, this is a build for that. I am, again, going to apologize for if the screen is a little bit too wonky. Part of the reason why I do have 2 builds set up is for the fact that I didn't speed this build up nearly as much as I do the other builds. It's still sped up quite a bit so that I could have 2 videos that wasn't, like, way too long. But, that is why I do have 2 builds, is because I did not want to speed it up too much to try to fit it into one video. Because of the train tool, the fact that I use the train tool, it's causing the camera to go a little bit wonky in some places while building. So I do want to apologize again for that. Just be prepared that when I'm moving about in some places, especially anywhere near the buildings, that's where the big part of the train is and where it's messing it up. But as you can see, I had a little bit more bits of the grass that I was placing, because that I had mentioned in part 1 that I really hated the way that the train tool makes the sides of hills and stuff look if they get too tall. It doesn't let you be able to airbrush it, which makes no sense to me, because a natural hill still has grass growing on the side of it, and even if it's not a natural hill, like if it is a man-made hill, if for some reason you have dug up a bunch of dirt and then moved it over and you've made like a hill, that sunken spot where you dug the dirt up and the hill eventually will grow grass on it. Obviously for the temporary time being, it's going to be dirt, and you'll see like a dirt edge and everything, but eventually grass will start growing over it and everything, and eventually be covered. So I don't get why we can't put grass and things like that on those sections of those hills. It makes it look more natural, and the feel that I wanted this hill to be like is like it had been there a while and this village was sort of built up around it. But yeah, so that was towards the beginning there. Also, I should have probably mentioned this already, but if for some reason you missed part 1, or you started part 1 and for some reason you had to go away and you just realized that, you need to go watch it again or something, part 1 is down in the description below, as well as the Sims 4 build playlist. So if you want to go look at some of my other builds in that playlist, you can feel free to do so. But anyway, I should have mentioned that already, but whatever. So yeah, in this one I am mainly going through and doing the insides of all these different buildings, and I'm also going to be doing some fine-tuning on outside. Obviously, while doing stuff on the inside, I do come across some things that's on the outside. I wanted this build to look magical and fantasy. Like, I didn't want to just make a regular, village like you would maybe come across if you play games like some of the Elder Scrolls games and Witcher and Fable. That's the main ones I was referencing. There's other games along those lines as well. I know there's one that's along those lines that just got announced. I've seen some YouTubers have early access to one that's been been made for in the works for 4 years now, and they're just now getting to show early access to it or whatever. But there's a bunch of games that have that feel. Those are just some of the first ones that come to mind in my head. I know there's a lot of other ones, but yeah, that sort of feel, it's supposed to have sort of that village feel, but I wanted it to also still be magical because of the Create a Sim series that I am doing. I didn't want it just to be a plain village, but yeah, it is a village that has been built in this magical forest area. I'm building this in Granite Falls as a reminder. but you can technically place it in other places other than Granite Falls. and I am going to be putting it up on my gallery. My gallery stuff is down in the description below, like always. I did use CC again for this build. I mentioned it in the first part. A lot of my build CC comes from the same place, so it should be a little bit easier to actually find than when it comes to my cast CC. I give it to people who are able to make custom content list. I don't know if they go ahead and plan that and they specifically make sure they use mainly certain CC, or if like they just add CC, like take all their CC out and just add certain CCs and restrict themselves so they can easier find. I don't know how they do it necessarily, but the way that my CC folder is, it's organized technically. I actually have a pretty organized CC folder, but at the same time, I only get rid of CC when a patch or update breaks it, or a new pack, or I get tired of the CC, or when I download the CC it actually is broken already. So that is the only time I remove CC. So I have CC in this game that is so old. I know a lot of people actually like cleanse their folders of CC from like so many years ago, but I am not one of those people that does that. I just keep it. I keep it until it no longer serves a purpose for me or it breaks somehow. So yeah, it's really hard for me to be able to find every single CC item that I used in a Create a Sim, and especially a build, because the way builds work, I would have a long time. But I will say a big majority of the CC that I use for build stuff does come from the Sims resource. It would be an easy way to just find all of it. There are a few other places. Most of the places that I get all of my CC are listed down below. If there's particular items or any items that you see while seeing this build, or the screenshots are going to be in this part, so you'll get to see those. Feel free to ask me and I will definitely try to find it, the exact link to it. I can't make any promises, but I definitely wouldn't mind trying to find it for you. A lot of the stuff that I used in this, though, like some of the wallpapers and some of the items and stuff I used, actually came from when I searched fantasy and medieval on the Sims resource. So that may be a really quick way to find some of it, but yeah, that's where a lot of it came from. But onto the build itself, as you can see, all the little buildings are all like family homes. They're small, which made this so hard. I'm used to building like one build on a lot, and that is the main build, and I get to do all these different rooms inside of it and different things, but this was multiple tiny builds on the one lot that were all meant to be like houses, but it's more supposed to be like more older living. They didn't necessarily have like huge houses and things like that, and it wasn't structured the same. And like, I even went with the like, none of these houses have a bathroom in it. The bathroom, I did technically put a bathroom, and I had to use a toilet that came from the show Hidden Objects, which is a toilet that you technically make. It is the most rustic looking toilet I can find, so that if I was going to actually use this for anything, or if someone downloads this and they want to use it, there's actual functioning toilets on the lot, there's actual functioning refrigerators, but I did my best to still try to make it look more old school. So it's more of a community bath house type thing, so the showers and the toilets are in one particular building, and no other building has any bathrooms or showers, so these buildings don't have those in them. There is refrigerators in every single one of them. I used the refrigerator from Realm of Magic because it was the one that looked the most with the theme. Like, it has sort of a magical element to it, which I'm going fantasy, magical, medieval, like a mixture of those things, and that was the one that best fit because most of them look too new. There is one that goes with the stove that I've been using in most of the places, because there was a stove that has like little wood bricks underneath it, and that is the one that I basically used in every single house. I think I used the Realm of Magic stove in one or two of them though, but for the most part I used the one that has the wood underneath it because I thought that made the most sense. But it's like, this is the age where they're starting to get, since I did put stuff like stoves and things like that, it's like they're starting to get more technology and stuff like that. But either this is a magical refrigerator that keeps things cold, or we can pretend that it technically doesn't have an electrical part to it, and like the metal and stuff that it's made stays colder than the rest of the house, but it still doesn't keep like a regular fridge. But that was what I went for and what I had the best of doing. But I still try to make sure that each house had some uniqueness in it. Some houses are more like family homes, some are more like a single home. Some has more like herbal stuff in it and things like that. And again, I'm going to apologize over and over again if the camera gets way too wonky, but because of the terrain, it was hard to build with it. But yeah. So I did have a theme to each house, or like try to make it slightly different, but at the same time they're the same because there's not many options to choose from. And honestly, in a lot of those games when you go through the houses, I don't know if it's just because, the save time using the same resources, or if it's more of back in the day, like, there wasn't as much, like, customized, which I would imagine. I could see that, like, a lot of houses and things like that, when things started being, a lot of them looked more similar, except for, like, the really rich people, which none of these buildings are meant to be, like, rich. Now, the people that I'm making for this cast series technically wouldn't have to worry about being rich or not. I'm not going to say exactly what I'm doing just yet, but technically they wouldn't be living in these houses, but I'm just in my head, I wanted to make it still look like, they had structures in the back of them that were, like, fitting of the times and stuff like that, and I don't plan on them living in them. I don't plan on taking any of the screenshots in them, but for the fact of I was making a video and doing a build on it, and I was probably going to upload it to the gallery, I at least went ahead and made the inside of the builds. Which, honestly, I'm glad I did, because it was definitely different, and it was, like, interesting, and it was sort of a challenge to try to squeeze families into these really small buildings and things like that. Obviously, inside them, there's not as much in them as, like, houses that we're used to, because a lot of the times, like, kids mainly played outside, or had to deal with the bare minimum. I also forgot to go and put lights in most of these buildings while I was building them, because I was going through the thought process, like, I wouldn't need, like, a whole lot of light. I didn't want bright lights in these buildings because that wouldn't make sense, because they most likely have candles, which I do go back and put lighting in there. They're all candle-like lighting and stuff like that, so it still fits. Now, the lanterns that I have on the little poles that was in the last video, I actually meant to mention them. They are a CC lantern, but I really like how they looked, and they looked more like an old-school lantern. But there technically is a light bulb in it. We're just gonna imagine that's like some magical mage light, or there's actually a candle in there. Because none of the other ones fit with the look I was going for, and like fit on the post the way I wanted it to look. So yeah, but we're just gonna pretend that it's not a light bulb. It's some magical thing or a candle. But now, one thing I did mean to mention in part 1 is that, yeah, I'm using CC, and I didn't technically limit myself to any packs, but I was going to mention the main packs that I know that I really strongly use, which is Realm of Magic, Vampires, Get Together, and, oh, there was a fourth one. There was a fourth one that I know I used a lot of stuff from. I'm forgetting it right now. There was 4 that I know that I used a whole lot of because they had the theme and stuff going on it more often. Obviously, I did build this in Granite Falls, so Outdoor Retreat, but again, you don't actually have to place this a lot in Granite Falls. Therefore, you don't really need Outdoor Retreat for that sense. Get Famous, they had quite a bit. That was one of the other ones, because they had, like, some of the movie props and things like that that was pretty usable. There's probably some other packs that are almost used as much as those as well, but those are the 4 that I remember. There was, even going into this, I know they had items in it that I could probably use. And I think even at one point I sorted it to just show items from those 4. And Get Together was mainly, like, the aesthetic look, and I ended up not using the wallpaper and stuff from it, but that was mainly what I was thinking of when doing that one. But I probably used more Realm of Magic, and that's probably the big one. That's like the big one I know of. Vampires and Get Famous are up there too. But Realm of Magic is probably the biggest one to give me some of those fantasy vibes that I really, really needed. Now, in terms of items from those packs, you can actually go in, one thing that I think most people know now, but I still like to just give a reminder, since a lot of times I don't restrict the amount of CC, or not CC, the packs that I'm using throughout my builds. If you don't have certain packs, you can go in, when you're in the gallery, you can actually click on a pack. Like, there should be like a list of packs that were used in that particular build. You can click on a pack that you don't have, and eventually there should be a thing like more towards the right side of the little box that opens up that says items used in this build, or something along those lines. I forgot the exact wording. But you can basically see which specific items are used in that build from that particular pack. So you may, when you go to download my builds or someone else's builds maybe, and you don't have a certain pack, that might actually help you figure out if it's going to be so many items that you don't want to deal with it, or if it's only like 1 or 2 items that you can easily replace. Now I'm actually sort of curious and would love for anyone to try to actually guess what, maybe even remotely, what cast series I'm going to be doing next. You could suggest something like, it's from a movie, it's from a TV, it's from a video game, and I'll say yes or no. And if you want to keep trying to narrow it down, or if you think specifically you know what particular movie, game, or show it could potentially be from or something, you could feel free. But I'd like to see if anyone could even remotely get close to guessing what my next cast series is going to be based off of. So if you want to actually try to guess that, feel free to do so in the comments below. I think it'd be a little fun little thing that you could try to do, but I don't know if anyone will get it. I think people, like, if you've been on the channel a little bit, even if you haven't watched a lot of my videos, but you've just know at least somewhat about me, I think you'll get close, but I don't know if anyone will get I don't think anyone will get exact, but from what it's particularly from, maybe. Maybe. Now, I will say, if for some reason out there, because I do know that there is a expansion pack and a stuff pack floating out in the works that we know are coming because of the leak on Origin with the stuff pack, and then they've mentioned an expansion pack. And I think they said something about we know or would have the expansion pack before the end of this year, because I'm pretty sure what it's going to be is like holiday for probably November, because a lot of expansion packs have been released in November, so that would be my guess. I know Get Famous was released in November, University was released in November, so I have a feeling it's going to be November, but I don't know when we're going to hear about it. And by the time this build goes up, we may have got some announcing. It's October, literally October 1st, when making this voiceover, or about to be. I'm making it late at night. So, but if, I'm saying if, and I really don't think it is, but we don't know what this expansion pack is, and we don't know what the stuff pack is. If they were remotely anything fantasy-like, for some reason, I will come back to this build and, like, fix it up with the stuff in that stuff pack or game pack if it has got a fantasy-related theme. And I would love that. Like, I was talking about in the part 1, that I would absolutely love a fantasy stuff, fantasy pack. I'd prefer expansion. I'd prefer the fantasy thing to be expansion, so we get a whole new world that would be absolutely gorgeous, and magical, and beautiful, and maybe actually get a cult out of it, like fairies, or elves, or dragons. If you've watched my Sims 4 cult discussions, I mentioned those 3 that I would like to see those 3 come with a fantasy pack. And, like, pet dragons, even if we didn't get full-on, like, walking around, like, Dragonborn, Dragonfolk, whatever, at least pet dragons, but I would love it. I would absolutely be ecstatic for it. And Sims 4, though, I love Sims 4, don't get me wrong, and the thing is, with Sims 3, a lot of people try to say that the Sims don't look too bad. And some people can do really well with the Sims from Sims 3. But I personally just don't like the way Sims 3 Sims look. And, like, a lot of the Sims 3 Sims that actually turn out looking really good, there's a lot of CC on them. And here's my thing. If you were to take all CC out of Sims 4 and all CC out of Sims 3, and you went into CAS, other than the fact that obviously we have a color wheel and, like, you got to pick, like, personality, favorites, and things like that. I like that. The color wheel, not necessarily. I like the idea for the skin tones with the slider. I like that they're doing that. But because of the amount of CC that's already in my game and things like that, a color wheel partially scares me at this point. And I'm okay with not having a color wheel, in all honesty, in Create a Sim. I'm glad it's coming to the skin tones, or the slider anyway. That's a good idea, and that I'm perfectly fine with. But having a color wheel for everything else would just break everything at this point, and I think it's just too late in the Sims 4 cycle to bring something like that, personally, and it's not going to bother me at this point. Obviously, it would make some things easier when it comes to create a Sims, but in some ways I like that challenge, being limited by stuff, because certain CC or certain items in Sims in general don't have certain colors, so I have to be more creative. So I'm okay with not having the color wheel, but the personalities and some of the personality stuff and the favoriting and all those things, I would love for those to come back. But if we're just literally talking aesthetics, like the look of the Sim itself, I will take Sims 4 Sims over Sims 3 Sims any day. And, like, they say Sims 3 Sims was to look way more realistic. They don't to me. They look like they're, like, clay or something. Like, I could poke them and it would indent inside their cheek and it would take a while for the cheek to reform. Like, that is what they look like to me, and I know that some people would defend Sims 3 Sims so much, and that's fine. That's your opinion. My opinion is I don't like the way they look. There's some more of a realistic look to them than the Sims 4 ones, but at the same time, not. And Sims 4 was purposely going for cartoony meets realistic. Like, it wasn't trying to be realistic, while Sims 3 Sims were trying to be realistic. But they just look too weird to me. They just look so odd, and like, if you were to fool with them, that it would just some weird clay glob thing is what their skin looks like it's made out of. If you take CC into the effect, yes, there can be really amazing, beautiful Sims 3 Sims. But without CC. I'm saying both of them without CC. Sims 4. Hand down. And obviously Sims 1 and Sims 2. I think Sims 2 is obviously one of the best Sims out there. Like, Sims 1, yeah, it's nostalgia. It's the first Sims for me. Like, it's what got me onto the series. But Sims 2 was a lot of fun. There was a lot of things from Sims 2 that I would like to bring back. And Sims 2 is an easy way to be like, yeah, have the cars function like in Sims 2. We don't need an open world for cars and things like that. There's a lot of things from Sims 2 that I like. And Sims 3 brought a lot of cool effects too, but I didn't get to play it as much. I probably played Sims 2 more than Sims 3, in all honesty, when really thinking about it. But some of my favorite things, and some of the things I was excited about Sims 3, I remember not working as well. I didn't like University as much in Sims 3. I don't really like University in this one either. I didn't like University in general in most of the Sims. I don't know why, it just did not appeal to me too much. I like the world that came with this one, and I can't remember the other two stuff enough, because I just didn't play it. I didn't. But yeah. So, I've randomly got onto comparing them in this video, but I definitely think Sims 4 has a lot of flaws, and it's getting to the point where previous Sims technically are better than Sims 4 in a lot of ways. Now, there's a lot of things that Sims 4 has going for it that the others don't, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that the others have that Sims 4 doesn't, and it's in some ways hard to understand why, or why it's taking as long to get some of those things versus the other ones. But I'm not going to go too in-depth with it. I have, like, thoughts and theories about it, but I can't really say, because it may be, like, there's a lot more going behind the scenes than we realize, and with newer stuff and things. I don't know. But if a fantasy pack did come and it was done right, Sims 4 would probably go to the top for me, because I love my fantasy stuff, and I know I think a fantasy pack would be borderline on whether or not it was well liked or not. Not everyone wants the occults and things like that. I feel like vampires especially, and magic in general, has been a thing for Sims for so long that it would be weird not to have them, so they are some of the exceptions. But when it comes to trying new occults, or like having packs that focus, like expansion packs anyway, that bring in more than one occult, or like really focuses on some of those things, and having a very strong fantasy non-realistic part to them, I think most of the expansion packs have a realistic element to them, stronger than a non-realistic element. So I'm not sure if a fantasy pack would ever be a thing, but a fantasy expansion pack would make me one of the happiest simmers ever. So I could hope, and if for some reason it was something along those lines, I would come back and try to fix this and just do nothing but stuff from the game, so not using CC. like actually remove my CC from the folder and just go with the packs that come, like all the packs and stuff, and try to redo this, I would. But considering we don't have any packs that have like a full range of stuff that I could have used for this, I use CC to give the full look that I was wanting to go for. Now, I'd definitely like to know what is some of your favorite parts about this build. Do you like the overall look of the outside? Is there a particular area you like? Do you actually like the buildings, the inside of the building, the outside of the buildings, the way the buildings are laid out? Let me know what's your favorite part about this build down in the comments below. Like I was saying in the last part, I had a lot of fun with this. I just loved doing this. There was a point that when I was doing the grass that I was getting to the point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired. I'm tired of this. This is annoying. And I was getting annoyed at something else going on while I was doing this. It had nothing to do with The Sims, but I was getting a little annoyed at something else, and like, being annoyed at something else and then having to constantly, repeatedly put that grass down. I almost gave up of doing this build. Not doing the whole build, but like at the time. So it would have delayed the amount of how fast I got this build done. But consider, I got this build done in 2 days. Like I said in the previous one, I ended up having 10 hours of footage to sort through and take out like dead parts or take out parts where I was scrolling too much or I thought I was scrolling too much. And repetitive parts like the grass and things like that. So it was a lot of footage to sit through and go through and all that stuff. And I potentially could have got it down to one video. It would have been like a little bit longer, but it still could have, it wouldn't have been so long that I wouldn't considered it being one video. But I was afraid to speed it up too much with how it was acting with the terrain and stuff. And I really hope that did not bother anyone even as fast as it was going, because I was still iffy with how fast it was going. But I decided to keep it at that speed, so I really hope that it didn't bother you. But I hope you really enjoyed this build. You should be seeing the screenshots now, if not soon. Again, sometimes my voiceovers sometimes mess up because I stop talking and I forget to pause the video that I'm watching as I'm talking and stuff, and things sometimes don't exactly 100% line up. Like, they're supposed to. But anyway, yeah, so you should be seeing the screenshots now, if not very soon. But I loved how this turned out. I'm looking forward to actually using it as a little photo area and actually spending time in this lot and getting use out of it. I really, really was happy with it and had fun doing it, other than the grass. Stupid grass. And the rocks was annoying too. But that was just because it made no sense to me how the rocks... It looks like the rocks were like almost in the same spot when I'd go down a basement level. Or 2 basement levels. Like, it was like I had to do like 3 or 4 basement levels just to get those rocks layered the way they are. So, that was weird and strange having to fool with that. But I had a lot of fun. And I ended up having to take a lot of screenshots to cover all this. Just because there was like so many buildings and so much going on and stuff. But it was fun, and it was cool to do. Like, it was interesting. There was challenges here that I'm not used to and things like that, and having to make sure to avoid certain CC or certain stuff within from the packs because it didn't fit the theme at all really limited what I could do. But it made it a challenge at the same time, and I do like challenges to a sense. Some challenges get really annoying, but this was a challenge that was really fun, and I really like doing it. Like I said, I will actually be putting this up on the gallery for you to download if you want to. There is quite a bit of CC in it though, but I will try to help if I can, so definitely feel free to ask if there's certain CC you can't find, or you're just asking in general. About a particular CC item, I will try to find out where I got it from and give you a link to it. Again, a lot of it comes from Sims Resource, because I get a lot of my build stuff from the Sims Resource. When it comes to that, it's the Create a Sim stuff that I get from a lot of different places, but most of my build CC comes from the Sims Resource. A lot of it was when I searched medieval and fantasy recently, because I downloaded a lot of this stuff very recent to use for this build. So you can search those 2 things and find a big chunk of it. Probably not necessarily all of it, but like a big chunk, a pretty big chunk of it, so it will help you, but I would definitely try to help find some of the CC if you really, really want it. Or maybe if you have some of your own CC, or if you want to change it up a little bit, you can do so however you feel. But I will be putting it up on the gallery since I put basically all of my builds up on the gallery, CC or not. So I hope you like this video and how the place turned out. It's one of my favorites that I've done recently, but I've had a lot of favorites though recently, in all honesty, but they've all been very different from one another. But this was a favorite for a few reasons. I like the fact that it does look magical and fantasy, and I like that vibe. I love that vibe so much. I like that it challenged me in many ways, and it was definitely fun, and doing things a little bit differently and trying to work around things was a lot of fun. So I enjoyed this build all around, other than the grass. So yeah, I hope you like it as well. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you liked it, please hit that lovely like button, subscribe, you know, all that lovely YouTube goodiness, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!